Hi, my name is Luulu, and I am into a lot of different fandoms. I like anime, I like reading sci-fi fantasy, I like all kinds of nerdy stuff, and more than that, I like to talk about it. I also like to craft. So for the next little while, sit back, hang out, and craft along with me while I go over whatever it is that I'm currently into.
Okay, we're going to start off by talking about the project that I'm currently working on. We will go over the yarn and what the project itself is. The project is a cowl created by Laura from Empress Fiber Arts, which is an independent dye company. When this pattern is out of its test knitting phase, and I'm one of the lucky ones that get to test knit this, it will also be available as well as other yarns on inkedempress.com. However, she also has a YouTube channel that you can check out, and that'll be linked in the description below. I am having a lot of fun knitting this cowl, guys. It's got a pretty simple and easy to follow ribbing right now that I'm doing, but it's also a ribbing that I have never personally done before, and it's honestly a lot of fun. I love that her directions are not really simplified, but they are very easy to follow. Explained easily for someone like me who sometimes has to reread a pattern like multiple times before I understand exactly what's going on. Whew, I've had some interesting projects. The yarn, though, is yarn that has been hand dyed by Voolenvine Yarns, who is also a YouTuber who will be linked at the bottom of this in the show notes. And this is a footsie fingering weight yarn, and it is the Stoker colorway. And okay, guys, Voolenvine Yarns updates their shop like she updates her shop like once a week, and her stuff sells out within a few hours. Like, it is fast going. I was fortunate enough that on my birthday, turns out my birthday was a shop update day. So I was there, like, at the website, refreshing the page the moment before the shop update hit, and I snagged this Stoker colorway and another colorway that you are very likely to see in a future episode because I love this yarn. I love knitting with it. I love how it's looking on the cowl, and it's just it's a lot of fun. And right now we're in the very beginning stages. So I've pretty much got a circle, and at the end you will actually see comparison photos of what the project looked like when I started out and what the project looks like after this segment of knitting. I do not work on this project outside of this podcast. The work thus far done was actually from two previous recordings that I chose not to use because I'm just starting out and I made some mistakes and I didn't really like my backdrop, like where I was knitting at the time. And once I had the backdrop that I really liked, I I didn't want it to be like, oh yeah, but here's this other area that doesn't look as good. So that's why there is already progress on my needles, but thus going forward, you will only ever see progress based off of the knitting segments. When I'm completely done with this cowl, I will show you the finished project, and then I plan on combining the knitting segments in kind of a time-lapse speed knit fast forwarded video where I will go over the entire learning process of the project. Obviously, I will not go over like the intimate details of the pattern though because that's that okay. But I will tell you my favorite things about the cowl, if I enjoyed the needles. The needles I'm working with are something called square needles. They were actually given to me by a friend, so I have no idea where they were purchased originally. But I do like them. They are a little bit nicer on my wrists. And as for that, I can't really think of anything else to talk about yarn-wise right now. So I'm going to go into that thing that I'm currently into right now. And what that thing is the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. I'm actually listening to these books using audible.com. That's honestly how I do most of my reading, because I can dive deep into all of my favorite stories and some stories that I don't even know are favorite stories yet. And I can do it with headphones in. I can do it when I'm driving, when I'm cleaning the house, when I'm knitting, obviously. You're actually seeing a pair of headphones here on my head. I am listening to the Wheel of Time as I'm knitting for this podcast. So yeah, Audible's great. It's a lot of fun. I also really like that on the very rare occasion where I'm like, hey, I don't really have any more books that I want to read right now, I can actually pause or cancel my Audible subscription, but I still have access to all of the books that I've already purchased. And at any point, I can access them and listen to them again. I can also just bring my subscription back whenever I feel the need to, which I have recently done, hence the Wheel of Time. I am currently in book 4 of the series. So if you have not read past book 4, that I'm going to be talking about content throughout books 1 through 4. There may be some spoilers, so I'm sorry about that. If you have read past book 4, I will also be giving out some predictions I have for future books, so that might be kind of fun for you to see if I'm right or wrong before I even know it. But that's kind of one of the things I like to do. I like to predict things and I like to see if I'm right. Now, most of these books were written completely by Robert Jordan, but the last few ones, if I remember correctly, were actually co-written by Brandon Sanderson, because Robert Jordan unfortunately passed away before he could finish this series. And it's really sad that that happened, but I also feel like it's kind of cool that there was another writer there that could pick up his reins, pick up his notes, and help him finish, honestly, what is turning into probably my favorite book series. Previously, of which was the Dresden Files. Still love the Dresden Files, just haven't gotten around to rereading them again yet this year. And I don't know. Okay, top three. I can't say I like it more than the Dresden Files. Definitely top 3. Dresden Files, Wheel of Time, and Harry Potter. Like, it's just, that's who I am, guys. But actually, it took me 3 or 4 attempts to get into this book series. The prologue in book 1 is just really tough to get into because it throws you in the middle of a scene. It's a very bloody scene. It's a very dark and depressing scene. And I'm not really about any of that life. I don't like sad stuff. I don't like a lot of death. I don't like people losing their loved ones. Like, deaths in fiction have to be very pinpointed for me to accept them. If you have main characters or characters that you love dying off every chapter or every, I'm going more into the anime realm here with a big popular strain that happens where characters just die one after the other and there's blood and gore and it's just the whole big thing. I don't like it. It's not entertaining to me. And that's kind of what the prologue of the Wheel of Time is. You got this guy, and he's obviously delusional, and he's surrounded by the dead bodies of his entire family, and he killed them, but he doesn't remember that he killed them, or that they're even dead, and they're in a place similar to Rome, I think, was the impression I got. So it was like, wow, that's a lot to unpack. And this is the prologue. Not sure if I'm going to be into this. So I stopped listening. And then I kept hearing about how amazing this series is. So I started listening again. And then I stopped listening. And then I finally got through the prologue and realized it happened in the past. Way, 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 way in the past. And then chapter 1 is much more my style. You've got the farm boy and his dad, and they're walking to the town, and it's actually, the series is about, at least book 1 is about these 3 main boys who are all similar age, and this mysterious woman shows up in their hometown, and she's like, hey, so one of you 3 are really special. I don't know which one. You see those monsters back there that kind of attacked, raided, and looted your village, or at least tried? You guys, great for, beating them off with a stick. However, they're going to keep coming because they also know that one of you are special, so you need to come with me. And they don't necessarily, jump to do this, but they do join her. But so does one of their childhood friends, which is a female, Egwene. And a little while later, the healer of the village, Nynaeve. And at first, I didn't pay much attention to these 2 characters, because another thing outside of, oh my god, this book series is amazing, that I always heard was, oh my god, Robert Jordan cannot write women. It's so unrealistic. So I was like, I'm probably not going to like these 2 characters. But I kept reading because at this point I've already been exposed to a magic system that's kind of interesting. I love small towns. I love, it's not really medieval fantasy-esque, but it's got a very similar Dungeons and Dragons and Dragonlance feel to it. And then I was very, very, very surprised, because these 2 women that I was not expecting anything from are now 2 of the front runners of the series. They are in fact one of, I would honestly say, probably 6 main protagonists. And that may change. Remember, book 4. I'm on book 4. But it's just amazing how much these characters grew from, oh, these are the tag-along sidekicks, to, oh, wait, no, there are entire chapters. Hell, I think all of book 3 is almost entirely about these 3 women. And along with these 3 women, who, by the way, are not perfect, they have a lot of flaws and vastly different personalities, you have entire countries that turns out it's a matriarchy. And then you have cultures that are almost like what we know of in Western culture, but it's kind of flipped on its head, because they have things like the women propose to the men, and when a man chooses yes or no, chooses to accept the woman's hand in marriage, the house that is built for them belongs to the woman. So, he has to ask every single time he enters this house. And that's kind of really, really cool. In addition to that, though, you have entire groups of women who are warriors. They are fighters. And they have not given up all hopes of being in a romance or marrying a guy. In fact, they absolutely can get involved and marry men. But they do tend to give up the spear, if I'm right. They give up their fighting when they do so. But it's always their choice. Them and whoever they're interested in, of course, obviously. And then you have, the magic system is comprised almost entirely of women. You find out that guys can kind of channel magic too, but it's exciting, but there's not many of them around right now. Used to be a lot, not anymore. But so you have all of these really powerful women, effectively wizards, running all over the place, getting their hands in things, except they can't attack anybody unless they are in, I think it's self-defense, or unless they are attacking something that's evil. Then they can use their powers. But hey, just kidding. That's only one type of woman who tap into the same power source. So you have like, as the cultures shift and these main characters, they go through, at this point, I want to say 5 or 6 different cultures. Um, Probably more. You see how different societies wrap their heads around women and men. But like I said, not many of them around. But the women who have these abilities, some of them hides them. They don't want anyone else to know. Others don't want them and ship them off to the main magic users called the Aes Sedai. And it's just, it's really, I am loving learning about each and every culture because they're vastly different from one another. In some interviews I've read that Robert Jordan took inspiration from a lot of different cultures, and every once in a while I can kind of see that, like, oh, okay, so these traditions make me think of this group of people, and these traditions kind of make me think of this group of people, but it's nothing is ever precise or specific. It all kind of goes into gray and blurred areas, and honestly, I really like that too. And there's a point in book 4, yes, I think it was earlier in book 4, where I realized, as of right now, at least 3 of the completely, vastly, obnoxiously different cultures are linked together. They all come from a very similar or the same grouping of people originally. And that just kind of blew my mind. Like, a lot of people say, I keep saying a lot of people say, because I heard so many things about this book series before I ever even started reading it. I've gone over the first 2. Great series, can't write women. Already gone over how I strongly disagree that they can't write women. But the third thing I always hear is it starts to get bogged down around book 3, I think like 3 through 6. But what other people seem to be calling bogged down, I'm seeing a ton of character development, of world building, of just diving into what makes each group of people specific and important to the world and the stories. And honestly, at this point, so I mentioned I have predictions for the future. Well, you've got one of the 3 boys. Obviously, you find out by the end of book 1 which of these 3 boys is, quote, the special one. But you've also found out that the other 2 are also special. And every culture seems to have some type of prophecy about this dude that's going to come and he's going to destroy everything and he's going to fix everything, like, at the same time. My theory is it's not one guy. Everyone seems to think it's the same guy, but I think that that's not the case. I think it's the main guy, and then it's one of his best friends. All 3 of them, honestly, all 3 of the boys have a strong role to play in this world. And I think they are going to become massive power players. I also predict that the 3 women are going to become massive power players. I think one of them is going to go back to the original town and help build it back up as the queen of that area. But that's already being a little like, maybe I'm wrong there, because one of the guys are kind of doing the same thing. But I don't know. I don't think this is one of those stories where there's just one person that can fix everything. And that is absolutely fantastic. And I am really, really looking forward to see what happens. Which is cool, but also kind of unfortunate because, as I stated earlier, I use Audible and I have an Audible account. Well, I think in June or July, one of those 2, it's coming up here real fast, the next book in the Dresden Files pops up. And then a few months later, the next book in the Dresden Files pops up. And again, I mentioned this earlier, Dresden Files, Harry Potter, listen to them repeatedly. I love these book series. And I don't know, you guys, like, I'm going to have to choose. Am I going to use my Audible credits to listen to The Wheel of Time or to listen to the newest Dresden Files book? And that's going to be a really difficult decision for me because it's been a while. And I don't remember a lot of stuff from previous books in the Dresden Files. So honestly, before I read the newest version, I would like to be able to go back and re-listen to a lot more of the older books, which naturally I would have been doing by now. But I started reading the Wheel of Time books before I knew that the next book in the Dresden Files was going to land this year, or before I believed it. Because, I mean, guys, it's been a while. No shade on that, though. Like, no shade. Any writer who has book series, like, I think it's absolutely amazing. And if they need time, they need time. And that's just all there really is to that. And Jim Butcher, yeah, he paused a little bit with the Dresden Files, but he gave us the Aeronauts Windlass. And he did some side stories, I think, I want to say. And then now, poof, he's popping out 2 books in 1 year, so that's super awesome. That, I mean, we waited, like, guys, how many years? Like, 14 years for Kingdom Hearts 3, and, I still haven't played that, so, yeah. But, so, books, still not sure. I don't know. Maybe at that point I will have had my momentary fill of the Wheel of Time series, because there's like, what, 13, 14 counting the prologue. There's a lot of books in this series, so I might not be able to just sit down and go through every single book back to back to back to back to back. I would love to, but I'll probably get a little burnt out, in which case I will pause, go into the Dresden Files. I'm going to try not to listen to both of them at the same time, because, I mean, I could, but then I would have way too much to talk about. I can't even get through one segment without jumping around, because there are so many different, like, fandoms and stuff that I really love and enjoy. So, I think, actually, we are very close to running out of time. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, for listening to my rants. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you next time.
Thank you for joining me for this week's Craft and Chat. Did you have a good time? What did you think of the knitting progress that we have made, which is somewhere over here? And what did you think of my thoughts on the Wheel of Time thus far? If there's anything else that you would like to hear me talk about, review, any other fandoms or series, just let me know in the comments below. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and see you next time. Bye-bye now.